YAHAWASHI, YAHAWA, YAHAWASHI.
That power is getting ready to be put back in us. For those who believe and have ears, that power that YAHAWASHI had on the earth, we're going to get that and more. And we're going to get those heavenly bodies, man. See, YAHAWASHI died on the cross and went through all that he went through so he can go back on the right-hand side and be glorified. We're fighting and making our bodies a living sacrifice so that we can eventually be back glorified with him as well as we were before the foundation of the earth.
The Spirit itself beareth witness with our spirit that we are the children of God. And if children, then heirs of God, and joint heirs with God. If so be that we suffer with him, that we may be also glorified together. For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us. For the earnest expectation of the creature waiteth for the manifestation of the sons of God. For the creature was made subject to vanity, not willingly, but by reason of him who hath subjected the same, in hope, because the creature itself also shall be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the glorious liberty of the children of God. For we know that the whole creation groaneth and travaileth in pain together until now. And not only they, but ourselves also, which have the first fruits of the Spirit, even we ourselves groan within ourselves, waiting for the adoption, to wit, the redemption of our body.
Eternal life. That's what's promised to the elect. All right, all Israel, but it starts with the elect. And that's how the earth will be governed by immortals, perfect angelic forces who are going to come down and rule on earth. Extraterrestrial bodies will be able to do things that humans do, but in heavenly bodies. Like eating, drinking. Did not YAHAWASHI say he's going to drink wine with us in the kingdom? Well, how do you drink wine with a spiritual body? Well, we're going to have out of this world capabilities in those new bodies.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, YAHAWASHI, Bahashem, Kakadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers. And peace and blessings, salutations to the hopeful elect out there pushing his word in truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh Bashim Shai, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful elect, the believers, the listeners, whom have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh by Shemal Shai. All right, and what I want to get into, all right, tonight, is dealing with today, rather. What I want to get into today, is getting into the book of Ephesians, the second chapter, and it's entitled, Alive in YAHAWASHI, our way back. Okay, because YAHAWASHI, as we know, is our way back to the Father, our way back to the promises, okay? And what he did, his sacrifice, okay, his death and resurrection, was symbolic, for our death as a nation and our resurrection, okay? So understanding YAHAWASHI is understanding everything, okay? So we're going to get into the book of Ephesians, chapter 2, and Lord will, all right, you brothers, all right, and you sisters are edified. Now we're going to read in the NLT, jump back and forth. All right, when you go to the book of Ephesians chapter 2, verse 1 in the NLT, it says, once you were dead because of your disobedience, all right, and your many sins, all right, because sin is death. You look at, what sin is about, okay, adultery, unaliving people, just, stealing, it's just death, man. All it is death, because it invokes anger, it invokes confusion, all right, dis-ease. All that comes from sin. When you look at the problem of the planet Earth, well, it's the man of sin, all right, that's in power, okay? And this sinful kingdom, okay, is just full of death, okay? But us as Israelites, as we, may sin the culture, it became death unto us, man. You see, on another level, okay? Because see, we're punished more harshly even than the heathen. Okay, so those Israelite foreigners, all right, that was living in their Hellenized, all right, Greek fashion, okay, there was a culture of death, all right, and also captivity, okay. Verse 2, it says, you used to live in sin just like the rest of the world, obeying the devil, the commander of the powers in the unseen world, all right, spiritual wickedness in high places, man, because you go into idolatry, which is nothing but Satanism, okay, under these different names of these different guys that worship of demons. All right, and the top demon on the left hand side is Satan. Okay, and everything outside of the truth, okay, is routed back to Satanism. Okay, whether it's feminism, nigger culture, Christianity, um, Islam. Okay, being a Republican, a Democrat. If you really go into it and what those things mean, okay, is rooted in, all right, Satanism. Okay, and when before we came into the truth, we was under the power, okay, of enchantments, man, of the unseen world. We was driven, we was motivated by enchantments of sin. Okay, which this devil Esau Edom, he's the top warlock in the earth. And he pushes out enchantments, okay, for people, all right, to live and rebel against righteousness, man. Okay, it says he is the spirit at work, all right, in the hearts of those who refuse to obey the Most High. Okay, in the hearts of those that refuse to obey the Most High, and that's why people, constantly get worse. Okay, because of their refusal to obey the Most High. Okay, because if this word is going out, and you still have 2/3, which is allotted for them, to be disobedient. Okay, and to refuse this word. All right, they only get worse. And they continue to march, all right, to the tune of these enchantments, man. Okay, and that's why Esau is able to just control our people, okay, have them react as he wants them to react, do certain psyops and, have them react how he wants them to react, and then come with the propaganda, okay, to justify, okay, his force. Okay, and that's where we at now. All right, now when you go to Ephesians 2 and 3, it says all of us used to live that way, following the passionate desires and inclinations of our sinful nature. All right, by our very nature, we were subject to the Most High's anger, just like everyone else, man. And we have to remember, we was on a path, okay, that was leading us, all right, directly into the anger of the Lord. Because see, what we're finna see play out in the earth, as we see things are constantly getting worse, as things are shaping up. Okay, we're in a time where the Lord's finna pour out his anger, and we was on that path to walk into that anger, because we was led, all right, by the flesh, by enchantments. You see, we was following the same thing everyone else was following, man. And this is why we have to be thankful, the Lord put us on this righteous detour, okay, by allowing us to hear in his word and repent. Okay, we're going to go into it now. Let's go here, because you go to the book of Colossians, which you get it, often. Okay, Colossians 1, okay, in verse 12. All right, this book, Colossians chapter 1, verse 12, it says, always, all right, thanking the Father, all right, he has enabled you to share in the inheritance that belongs to his people who live in light. Okay, because you have to understand, we was foreign, what you're going to go into in the book of Ephesians, but we was foreign into an inheritance, man. But through the preaching of the word, we was introduced back into an inheritance, man. Because the Israelite foreigners, they wasn't brought up, okay, in the custom. Because one thing about us as a people, you know, we would, you know, uh, we will be heavy into our history. You know, we were heavy into our history, man. You see, that's why Stephen was able to run it down, going all the way back from, you know, from Moses all the way to YAHAWASHI. You know, from Abraham to YAHAWASHI. Okay, that's why the Apostle Paul was able to constantly break down their history, because the Bible is full of our history, man. So, you know, you will be, if you were well versed in the scriptures, okay, you will be well educated in our history, man. You know, but coming up amongst, you know, the Greeks, you know, these Israelite foreigners, they wasn't accustomed, you know, to to their own history, man. Okay, and that's why Apostle Paul will often go into the history, you know, and sum everything up. All right, leading up to Yahushua. All right, but reading this in Colossians 1 and 12 said, giving thanks unto the Father, which have made us meet to be partakers of the inheritance of the saints in light, who have delivered us from the power of darkness and have translated us into the kingdom of his dear son. So let's get a couple words, you know, because we were once in the madness, man. You know, we often tell our people we never act, you know, as if, you know, we wasn't niggas before. Okay, well, like as if we wasn't out there, man. If we wasn't on the same tip, all right, that Jake was on. Okay, and this is why we have a testimony. Look, there's a better way. You know, we've tasted both sides. Okay, and that's why we're able to testify. Like, look, this is a better way. Okay, so you go into the word deliberate.
Strong's G 4506. Who am I? Who am I?
Who am I? All right, it says to draw to oneself, to rescue, to deliver. Okay, to rescue, to deliver. See, we was rescued, okay, from madness, man. You look at what our people own, man, and we should be extremely grateful that the Lord rescued us, all right, from darkness, man, from a mindset of death, okay, from the enchantments that has our people just completely gone. Okay, we should be extremely grateful that we've been rescued from that way of thinking, man. And hopefully we get rescued and delivered physically out of destruction, man. Okay, and then it says what? We didn't only get delivered from the enchantment, but we began to what? Be translated. All right, look at the word translated in the Greek.
Strong's G 3179. Methistemi. Methistemi.
Methistemi. Okay, and it says to transpose, to transfer. All right, to remove. Okay, from one place to another. Okay, of change of situation or place. Okay, and to begin with our mind, our belief system, our perspective. Okay, now we have a perspective of life. You see? So we've been delivered, rescued from the mind of darkness, all right, the filth, the enchantments of this world, and referred to what? Okay, a mind of rulership. That's another thing. The truth has given us back a ruling class mentality, man. Okay, and not from a sense of pride and okay, there's a sense of responsibility and righteousness, man. Okay, understanding the true duties of a ruler. You see, so we went from, you know, these slave-minded, enchanted, you know, horny, simple niggas, okay, to having a mind, all right, of an eternal righteous kingdom. You know, our expectations are completely different, man. The Lord has completely, you know, transferred, okay, our way of thinking, man. You see, now, okay, let's go here. Let's go to the book of Peter, okay? As you go to the book of First Peter, chapter 2. All right, the book of First Peter, chapter 2, and verse 9. It says, "But ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, and holy nation, a peculiar people. Now, the Apostle Peter this is being written, okay, to this is being written to Israelite foreigners, because you go into the context just to get the context. All right, and it might be in 2 Peter. No, it's first. Okay, 1 Peter 1:1 said, Peter, an apostle of YAHAWASHI HaMashiach, to the strangers scattered throughout Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia. Okay, so he was writing to the book of the church of Ephesians, which was in Asia. Okay, Colossians. All right, Colossia. I'm saying it right. Philippi. Okay, Galatia, the book of Galatians. The church of Galatia. Okay, so he was following up, okay, on the work of Apostle Paul, because this was after the Apostle Paul died, when the epistles of Peter were wrote to the Israelite foreigners. So why is he, okay, telling these Gentiles that they're a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, and holy nation, a peculiar people? All right, and we're going to finish that, but let's just link this up to show that this is speaking of Israelites, man. All right, this is the book of Exodus, chapter 19, okay, and verse I'll get to the point. This is the book of Exodus, chapter 19, verse 6. It says, and ye shall be unto me a kingdom of priests and an holy nation. These are the words which thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel. Okay, so why is the Apostle Peter, writing to Israelite foreigners on things that were spoken to concerning Israelites? Okay, and going back to the mysteries of, YAHAWASHI, our power, it was always intended for Israelite men to be kings and priests in the earth. Okay, so Apostle Peter fully knows that he's writing to Israelites. Okay, they have been, all right, removed, okay, from who they are, okay, through Hellenization, man. 1 Peter 2:9 says, but you are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, and holy, a peculiar people, that ye should show forth the praises of him who have called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. So let's get this word called, because I said we was all in darkness, man. We was all tripping, all right, westernized out, man, Greeked out, okay? So let's get this word called. I want to get the root word, all right, but you get it in the Greek, and then we'll get the root.
Strong's G, 2564. Kaleo.
Kaleo. All right. And it says to call or to invite. All right. To call or to invite. Now, when you go to the root, because this word going out is an invitation. And see, the elect are meant, okay, to receive this invitation, man. It's meant, see, this invitation is meant to incite the elect, as you're going to get. All right. Now, you go into this Greek word, it's similar.
Strong's G, 2753. Keluo.
All right. Which means to command or to order. And ultimately, for the elect, us hearing this word is a command and an order to get right. Because the will of the elect, all right, we're destined for salvation. Our Ratazah, man, we're the number. Okay. Now you go into, all right, the Strong's. Okay. It says what? To incite by word. To incite by word, i.e., order or bid. Okay. To incite. And you go into, okay, just pull it up real quick. You go into this word incite. Okay. It says incite can refer to the verb to incite, to stir up or urge. Okay, to stir up or urge, or to specific programs and organization. Okay, the verb means to provoke, stimulate, or encourage action. Okay, to provoke, to stimulate, to encourage action. Okay, so we was called out of darkness. This word provoked us to come out of darkness. It stimulated us to tap into righteousness through faith, man. Okay, it stirred us up. All right, it says to move to action because repentance is an action. To stir up, to urge on, or provoke. You see, so we was called, okay, out of that darkness, and it incited us. When we were called, the hopeful elect, they're incited, they're stirred up, they're provoked to move to action. Okay, and to be unmovable in it. You see, so going back to the book of First Peter. Okay, let's go back to Ephesians. We'll come back to that. We'll drop down in the book of Ephesians. All right, the book of Ephesians, chapter 2. Okay, and I believe we left off in 4. Okay, so we've been called out of darkness, and it's all of the Lord's mercy, man. You know, it's all of the Lord's mercy. You know that He did. You know what He did for His people. Ephesians 2:4. But the Most High is so rich in mercy, and He loved us so much that even though we were dead because of our sins, He gave us life when He raised YAHAWASHI from the dead. It is only by the Most High's grace that you, all right, have been saved. Okay, because YAHAWASHI death and resurrection was a representation for, all right, the nation dying and coming back. Okay, and it will begin, you know, with YAHAWASHI, His death and His resurrection, and then you will have the elect, okay, that will come out of that dead estate that the nation was in and be resurrected, man. Okay, you see, his, because we're the body. Okay, so His body, you know, being put away, all right, and then brought back to life. Okay, it was also a foreshadow of what would happen, all right, amongst us. Let's go here to the book of St. John. Let's go to St. John 2. All right. It's the book of St. John, chapter 2, and verse. All right. Let me see. All right, this St. John, chapter 2, verse 18 said, Then answered the Jews and said unto him, What sign showest thou unto us, seeing that thou doest, all right, that thou doest these things? YAHAWASHI answered and said unto them, Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up. Okay? And see, they was thinking about the actual temple going over their head, you know? And it says, Then said the Jews, 46 years was this temple in building, and without rear, okay, it up in 3 days. But he spake of the temple of his body, you know, his physical body, okay, which after the 3rd day he was risen, okay. But then, all right, the spiritual body that will be awakened, the church that will be awakened, okay, in this 3rd day, okay. And let's go to the book of, all right, Hosea. You see, so this is why, you know, we're lively now. We have purpose now. We have an expectation now. Okay. Hosea 6:2, I says, after 2 days will He revive us, and the 3rd day He will raise us up. Okay. You see that after 2 days, which has been 2 days, over 2,000 years since, you know, YAHAWASHI, okay, was crucified. Okay. And then the church, you know, it lay dormant. You know, the apostles had their run, it fizzled out, and then it was, you see, it says in the 3rd day, he will raise us up and we shall live in his sight. Okay, so within this third day, which we're in now, okay, we're going to live in this sight, and see, it's close. Okay, it ain't another 1,000 years. Okay, this thing is extremely close, man. The way things are going, the way things are trending. All right, but YAHAWASHI's death, burial, and resurrection was symbolic, was also the story for the elect. Okay, we've been awakened. What did YAHAWASHI say? The book of St. John, chapter 5, okay, in verse 25. Okay, verily, verily, I say unto you, the hour is coming, and now is, when the dead shall hear the voice of the Son of the Most High, and they that hear shall live. And how do the elect, okay, that's predestined, to be resurrected by this word, how do they hear it? How are they incited and provoked? Okay, through the prophets, man, which is the mouthpiece of YAHAWASHI. Okay, ambassadors of YAHAWASHI in this time. All right, so now let's go back um uh to Ephesians, all right, 2. Okay, Ephesians 2 and 6, it says, for he raised us from the dead along with Hamashiach, and seated us with him in heavenly realms, because we are united with YAHAWASHI Hamashiach. So as we're alive in YAHAWASHI, okay, the Heavenly Father, we have favor in the heavens, man. There's positions, authority and rank that we have in the heavens, okay, that YAHAWASHI is bringing back with him, okay? So the Most High can point to us in all future ages as examples of the incredible wealth of his grace and kindness towards us, as shown, all right, as shown in all he has done for us who are united, all right, with YAHAWASHI HaMashiach, man. And us, being put back in power is going to be a forever token of the Lord's grace and mercy and kindness towards his people, man. And it begins with us waking up now. That's why we got to be appreciative, man. Be appreciative. We not owed nothing, man. This is all because of the Lord's kindness, man, and his mercy, man. His undeserving kindness and mercy towards us, man. Okay, we did nothing to be the chosen people, man. That was just his good kindness, man. I want them. He chose a particular lineage. He created particular spirits to be chosen by him. Okay. So the things that, we've been through as a people, and the Lord bring us back. Okay. That's going to be a forever token, of kindness and mercy. You see, it says Ephesians 2 and 8, it says the Most High save you by his grace when you believe. Okay, and you can't take credit for this. It is a gift from the Most High. It's a gift. We can't have the mentality that we wake up and, you stop eating pork and shrimp, getting the line up for 3 months, and now the Most High is indebted to you. Nah, man. Okay, you put a skirt on, okay, a head wrap. These are beautiful things that we coming back to obedience. Okay, well, there's nothing we can do if we did it, for 1 trillion years, okay, that will put the Most High in our debt. Okay, no, we're forever grateful. Even in the kingdom, man, there's gonna be a spirit of appreciation of the Lord's goodness, man. One thing about this captivity is it should be creating a spirit of appreciation, man, of righteousness, of order, how things should be. Okay, and we should hate everything about that old man, everything. Ephesians 2 and 9 says salvation is not a reward for the good things we have done, so none of us can boast about it. Okay, because I said what we're doing now is appreciation, man, and we're doing it because we're in the spirit. All right, and this is the right thing to do. We're just going to go into that. Okay, it shouldn't take the fear of being stoned to be right, to do right. Okay, it's the right thing to do. Okay, would you want a trophy for not, unaliving, all right, your brother, for not committing adultery on you? Would you want a trophy? Okay, that's not the thing to do. Okay, see, the law was supposed to put us in a particular spirit, and it went over our head. We fumbled, you know. So Ephesians 2:10 it said, "For we are the Most High's masterpiece. He has created us anew in YAHAWASHI HaMashiach, so we can do the good things He planned for us long ago." Okay, that He planned for us long ago. All right. So it says we are the Lord's masterpiece, man. You see, the Lord has been the matter of fact. Let's get another precept to expound on it. Let's get this in. Let's get this in. All right, the book of Second Ezra. Okay, chapter 9. Yep, Second Ezra 9. All right, so when you go to the book of Second Ezra chapter 9, and you jump down, okay, it's Second Ezra 9:21. It says, "And I saw, all right, and spared it greatly, and have kept me a great of the cluster and a plant of a great people, which is the elect." Because amongst the cluster of Israel, where there's a remnant, that the Lord has created to be a great people. And through that remnant, the rest of the nation is going to come back. Okay, but right now, the Lord is perfecting the remnant. You see, Lord willing, we're the number, we're His masterpiece, and we're being completed. Okay, and this is their lifetime in which their remnant reached perfection, man. It said, "Let the multitude perish then, which was born in vain, and let my people, okay, be kept in my plant, for with great labor have I made it perfect," man. So the Lord has been dealing with the elect since the beginning, okay? And now He's at the point to where He's almost finished with His masterpiece, man, okay? That's why you're going to have, YAHAWASHI, He's the first one to reach His perfection through suffering. Now we got to reach our perfection through suffering, man. You see? So going back, it's been a long time coming. The Lord been, the Lord been putting the play together for eternity, man. I think about it. The Lord got, I say, Jake talking about plays like Most High putting the play together for forever. How was shy. He made that forever. He was that. He was that. He was the facilitator of that play. That's why I say it is finished. You see, now we just have to finish, man. Okay? But that mercy is there. The mercy we need from what YAHAWASHI did is covering us. That grace is covering us, man. As we strive for righteousness, that grace, okay, is covering us. Okay, so you go to the book of back to the book of Ephesians chapter 2. Okay, in verse 10 it says, "For we are the Most High's masterpiece. He has created us anew in YAHAWASHI HaMashiach, so we can do the good things which He planned for us long ago," man. You see, the Lord had a plan for Israel from the beginning. That's why there's a predestined elect. That's why there's a lamb slain before the foundation of the world. You go to Revelation, the 3rd chapter. Okay, it speaks about this lamb slain, showing you that this play, matter of fact, it might be 13. So like I say 3. Okay, let's get this. All right, Revelation 13:8. Okay, it says, "And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of the Lamb, all right, of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. Okay, so it was set up, from the beginning that we would need, okay, a sacrifice to bring us back, and it was YAHAWASHI, which brought us back to those promises, man. Okay, brought us back to good standings with our power, and it was set up from the beginning, and this all shows that He is, man, and we're playing out the Most High's movie, man. So if someone's proud, they don't get it. I understand. You have, when knowledge puffed up, and people, we all susceptible to pride, and we gotta, check ourselves, man. Okay, but if someone just has this demeanor of pride, like they're old something, oh nah, they don't get it. Okay, they don't have no clue what they're a part of. Someone, trying to play the victim of, man, they we can't play the victim, we can't be proud, we ain't, we're not old. No, man. This was set up before the foundation of the world, man. We came into the Lord's, all right, kindness, man. We came into the Lord's mercy, man. We was invited. Remember, we were called, we was invited. And the Lord incited our spirit, man, to react and provoked us to righteousness, man. Okay? Ephesians 2:11 said, wherefore remember that you being in time past Gentiles in the flesh, okay, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called the circumcision in the flesh made by hands. Okay? So we was called, at one time, you had a portion of our people that was called Gentiles, okay, because of the culture that came up in, not because of their lineage. Okay, they was Israelites, okay, after what? The Greekish fashion. Okay? Who are called the uncircumcised. Well, how did they get to the point of being uncircumcised, man? And that's where you got to tap into, all right, a little bit of this history, man. Okay? Let's go here to the book of Maccabees. All right, just jump around and get straight to the point. Okay? And see, without understanding the history of what happened during the time of the Maccabees, there's no way you can understand the New Testament. Okay, without understanding the Greek captivity, there's no way to understand the New Testament, man. Okay, now this is the book of First Maccabees, chapter 1, and verse 41 said, moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and everyone should leave his laws, so all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. So they was pushing a new world order under what? Hellenization. All right, King Antiochus Epiphanes, man. All right, from the line of the Seleucid dynasty. Okay, it says, yeah, many also the Israelites consented to his religion, which means they agreed and sacrificed unto idols and profaned the Sabbath. For the king has sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities, okay, of Judea, that they should follow the strange laws of the land and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days and pollute the sanctuaries, and pollute the sanctuary and the holy people, set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine flesh and unclean beasts, that they should also leave their children uncircumcised and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation, to the end that they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said he should die. Okay, so you have to understand this history under the order of death. Okay, Jake was forced. That's why I say Apostle Paul say you were Gentiles carried away into dumb idols. Okay, this is history that really happened to Israelites, man. Okay, so what you think the state of a portion of our people, okay, that was dispersed amongst all these different Greek city states, okay, raised up in idolatry, generation after generation. What mindset you think they was in, man? Okay, and how do you think Jake looked at these Israelites? They looked at them as traitors, man, because they looked at them as like, because you remember you had a lot of Israelites, they consented, you know, a lot of them consented without force. Some of it took force, but then some of them they fought. That's how you had the Maccabean revolt. So they looked at these Israelites. It was real tension there, which it's gonna get into that. It was real tension. Like they looked at the descendants of those Israelites that were Hellenized. They looked at them as descendants of traitors, man. Okay, when Mattathias, when this Jake went and sacrificed a swine on the altar, man, Mattathias, he lost it, man. He went and slaughtered Jake, man. And that was pretty much the declaration of war. Mattathias, a priest, okay, the father of Judas Maccabees, okay, he slaughtered Jake for sacrificing a swine on the idol, man. And that was the declaration of war. So the declaration of war against the Greeks, okay, was uh, a Levite, all right, Mattathias, a priest, all right, slaughtering the Jake on the altar, man, for being abominable, man. Okay, so it was bad blood, between those Israelites, all right, of the circumcision that came up in the covenant, okay, and the Israelites that, were Hellenized, man. It was bad blood. It was heavy tension, man. Okay, so that's why it was so controversial, man. They really Jake, Jake was saying, look, we not eating till we kill the Apostle Paul. There was a lot of tension, man. You see, it wasn't just no disagreement in the doctrine, man. There was a lot of history. It was actual wars fought and blood. Okay, dealing with this situation between okay the uncircumcised, the Israelite foreigners, and those of the circumcision, man. Okay, Ephesians 2:11 said, wherefore remember that ye being in time past Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called the circumcision in the flesh made by hands. Okay, and you read this in NLT, I think because even those of the circumcision, they still wasn't you had a lot of them still not in the spirit. Okay, it said, don't forget, it's NLT, that you Gentiles used to be outsiders. You were called uncircumcised heathens by the Jews, who were proud of their circumcision. You see, and Jake began to boast in it. You see, Jake was still missing the point. The fact that they was boasting in circumcision. Okay, not understanding, like, look, we all all right needed a sacrifice. All right, the circumcision, the uncircumcised, the northern tribes, everybody need that sacrifice, that lamb, that scapegoat. Okay, he said, even though it affected only their bodies and not their hearts. Okay, because the circumcision didn't convert their mind to righteousness, man. A lot of Jakes, they took that as a token to boast, just like today with the fringes. Jake used the fringes as a mean of boasting and not conforming to YAHAWASHI. Okay, the Jake that boast in the fringes are some of the worst niggas to be around. They still the same OG, if not worse. With a few precepts in their back pocket. Okay, Ephesians 2:12, it said that at that time you were without Hamashiach, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel and strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope and without the Most High in the world. Okay, we didn't have a clue. Okay, of the promises, man. We didn't know what the promises was. We didn't know that we were descendants, okay, of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, okay, and that Abraham was promised the whole earth, rulership, immortality. We wasn't privy to that, man. Our minds were far separated from that. Okay, But through YAHAWASHI, we was put back in remembrance, man. Because that the faith, see, we believed that, man, we are those, we had to believe that we was Israelites. We had to believe in the kingdom that was coming and the promises. That's why we get anchored in by faith in these promises, in these prophecies, man. You know, and then we began to tap into the law. Okay, we tap into the law because we believe. You see, if we didn't believe, that it wouldn't even be any. You see, unless it just you just want to boast, like that's what Jake do. And one thing too, Jake that boast in the law, they don't believe. Okay, Ephesians 2:13 said, "But now in Yahawashi Hamashiach, ye who were sometimes afar off are made nigh by the blood of Hamashiach." Man, it brought us back. When we started to learn of Yahawashi, that's what brought us back, man, to these promises. Okay, believing in these prophecies, that's what brought us back. Okay, and it says, "For he is our peace." Okay, who have made both one and have broken down the middle wall of partition between us. Remember, there was major tension between the uncircumcised and the circumcised, man. Okay, their history, like I say, it was war, it was blood. You know, they looked at them as traitors, man. Okay, and they looked at them not as Israelites. They knew that they was Israelites. Okay, well, they were looking at them as a no people. Okay, it says having abolished in his flesh the enmity, even the law of commandments contained in ordinances. All right, for to make in himself of twain one new man, so making peace. And he had it to where he had Apostle Paul, which was a Pharisee, which was the strictest sect. Okay, the Pharisees were the one that their gripe with Yahawashi, you know, was his stance on grace. You know, because they was extremely into the law. Okay, they overdid it. They added laws. They added sub laws. You know, like Esau Constitution. Jake was adding sub law to the law. Section, you know, section A, B. Like, god damn. You see, so the enmity. All right. The Yahawashi, he used Apostle Paul, a Pharisee, to bridge that gap. He used a Pharisee, you know, to be to bridge that gap between Israelite foreigners and the circumcision. Okay, because those that believed in Yahawashi, it wasn't any more enmity. Because you gotta think, the Jake didn't let nothing go. You know, the circumcision, those that grew up in the law and knew the history, like Jake wasn't letting nothing go. You know, Jake can be stubborn as hell. Okay, Apostle Paul is why he was. That's why he was persecuting the church. You didn't think he understood their history? He like, hell no. Okay, but then the Most High used him to be that bridge for the Israelite foreigners to get back to Yahawashi. Okay, which is to get back to the Father. Okay, so what Yahawashi did, okay, he did it a lot of enmity, man, between the circumcision and the uncircumcision. Okay, and they became one. You see, those of Judea and those of these different churches, they became one. Okay, when there was a famine, okay, in Jerusalem, okay, a lot of those Israelite foreigners they helped out. A lot of those Israelite foreigners helped out. The circumcision. Okay, let me see if we can go into the history. Let me see. So let's look at it real quick. So let's get it. All right. It says, according to the scriptures, let me pull it up so like. So this is just a quick look at the chat, because they became one. All right, they became like-minded, so that the enmity was gone. All right. It says, according to the scriptures, Gentile converts did help the Jews of Judea during the famine. All right, here are the precept, all right, Bible verses, okay, that link to this. Okay, it says, and in the days came prophets from Jerusalem unto Antioch, and there stood up from one of them named Agabus, and signified by the Spirit, all right, there should be great dearth throughout all the world, which came to pass in the days of Claudius Caesar. Then the disciples, every man according to his ability, determined to send relief unto the brethren which dwelt in Judea. So you had Israelite foreigners sending aid, okay, to the brethren in Judea. You see? All right. So they what? They loved their neighbor like themselves, which was a commandment of YAHAWASHI. Okay. They wasn't raised up in the law, but they was walking in the spirit. You see? They was walking in the spirit. It says, which also, all right, which also they did and sent it to the elders by the hands of Barnabas and Saul. Okay. It said the disciples in Antioch were mainly Gentile converts. When they heard of the famine, they collected resources to help, all right, and sent help, all right, to the Jews, all right, the believers in Judea. Okay. Romans 15:25 through 27. But now I go into Jerusalem to minister unto the saints, for it have pleased them in Macedonia and Achaia to make certain contribution for the poor saints which are at Jerusalem. It said it had pleased them verily, and their debtors, all right, and their debtors they are. For if the Gentiles have been made partakers of the spiritual things, their duty also is to minister to them in carnal things. Okay, so Paul confirms that the Gentile churches of Macedonia and Achaia collected aid, all right, for the Israelite believers in Jerusalem. He called this a rightful act of gratitude. All right, the Gentiles had received spiritual blessings from Israel, okay, which are, the Israelite foreigners, okay. It says, so the Gentiles are the Israelite foreigners, so they help materially in return, okay. 2 Corinthians 8:1 through 4. Moreover, brethren, we do you to wit of the grace of the Most High bestowed on the churches of Macedonia. Okay, on how that in a great trial of affliction, the abundance of their joy and their deep poverty abounded unto the riches of their liberty. All right, liberality. What liberal? What's it there? One minute. Let me start over. It says, how that in a great trial of affliction, the abundance of their joy and their deep poverty abounded unto them the riches of their liberality. Okay, for to their power I bear record, yeah, and beyond their power, they were willing of themselves, praying as with much, all right, entreaty, all right, that we will receive the gift and take upon us the fellowship, okay, ministering of the saints. Okay, so yeah, so um the Israelite foreigners, okay, they was aiding, you know, Judea, you know, in time, you know, famine, in time of need. Okay. So I say they became one in YAHAWASHI. Okay, just as we are one, you know, because the big thing, see, at that time it was a circumcision and the uncircumcised, you know. Now it's more so, you know, the northern and southern kingdom coming back, you know, we're one, you know, because a lot of us, you know, we ain't even, you know, was around, you know, southern kingdom like that coming up. I mean, northern kingdom. And then some of us with northern kingdom didn't even know. You see? So at the end of the day, all right, that enmity, okay, that division, okay, well, it's all right, rectified in YAHAWASHI, okay, Ephesians 2:16, and that he might reconcile both unto the Most High in one body by the cross, having slain enmity thereby, and came and preached peace to you which were far off, and to them that were not. Okay, so those is the circumcision and the uncircumcised. You know, those in Judea was not. All right, they was, you know, there was the home base of YAHAWASHI ministry. Okay, and then it says, now therefore you are no more strangers or foreigners, but fellow citizens with the saints and of the household of the Most High, and are built upon the foundation of the apostles and prophets. Okay, YAHAWASHI himself being the chief cornerstone. You know, so you have, you know, YAHAWASHI the cornerstone, and the apostles, you know, are the pillars. You know, the foundation and the pillars of this thing. You see, in whom all the building fitly framed together growth unto an holy temple in the Lord, in whom ye also are builded together for an habitation of the Most High through the Spirit, man. So the elect fit together. The spirits of the elect complement each other perfectly. Okay, and the building, okay, of the church and the edification of the church, man. You see, because it was predestined from the beginning. You know, so that's the point. You know, just wanted to get into that. You know, Lord will, you brothers, all right, and you sisters edified once again. We give all praise and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Kakadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers, and peace and blessings, salutations to the hopeful and shalom.